Hello, I am riding Ducati's flagship Multistrada V4. It can bounce radar off the cars ahead to keep pace. It can even bonk the cars behind to warn me when Justin Timberlake is driving erratically. We're all familiar with this. But what about a machine that enters sport mode as soon as I go into a tuck, or automatically pulls up the map if I appear lost? Well, how about a machine that saves a 360-degree replay of every near miss, learning from the patterns to warn its rider before the next one? Well, that would be annoying, probably. So, but let's learn about AI, because it's not actually complicated. What it is a convenient software for manufacturers to upload onto a new model, raising its MSRP without having to do the expensive work of physically upgrading the machine. And it's worth understanding that about AI before we buy into something that isn't all it seems. Motorcycle AI starts with a camera and a microchip. Our example is this Insta360 Ace Pro 2. Because it's an AI camera, and borrowing one from our film kit was less criminal than ripping the camera off a pre-production concept bike. But all AI cameras have special chips. This one actually has two, one that does the usual camera functions and another dedicated 5nm chip just for AI processing. That's 100% more computing power than a typical action cam, because what artificial intelligence really has to do is perform very large matrix operations very quickly. This image that you're looking at is just a big array of pixels, each with an RGB value. And such a large grid of numbers is no strange fellow to mathematics. It's called a matrix. We could take a smaller matrix and convolve it across the bigger one. Everywhere the squares overlap, we could multiply those values and add them all up. That would be called a dot product. This is all Oompa Loompa first-year math. But imagine now that our smaller matrix was this one. So we have the negative of these pixels, nothing of the middle one, and the positive of those pixels. If I held this over a flat background, these would cancel with these and it would spit out 0. But now if I hold it over something, suddenly these pixels, negative, would not match those positives, and we would spit out something significant. That's why this is called a vertical edge matrix. It is designed for finding vertical edges. And we should sit with that for a moment.
You can imagine similar matrices that isolate horizontal edges, or isolate general edge symbols, or isolate sex symbols. We call these grids kernels, and all they do is filter for a specific trait.
We now have everything that it takes to build our first AI. We just start with our pixels, convolve a kernel over those to find the vertical edges, convolve a kernel over those to find horizontal ones, to find dots, to find a specific arrangement between dots. This is turning into a very long math function, but it's how we go from finding edges to finding shapes, to finding objects like an eye or a mouth, to finding the specific arrangement between objects that we will positively label as a face. Now, what we've created is called a convolutional neural network, and that sounds very fancy, but it's really just a bunch of spreadsheet math that this camera can do extremely quickly. Watch, I'm shooting this with AI vision on an Ace Pro 2, and it's identifying my face in real time in a helmet. And that enables the camera's AI highlight assistant to cut together a reel for me, automatically choosing the clips where I'm in frame and looking animated. Woo! What a machine! Now, on a motorcycle, though, such intelligence has been hinted at being used for sporting up the suspension or sharpening the dash based on my moods. Of course, you could also use it, as this camera does, to perform functions even when you're wearing gloves and don't really have the time to fiddle with buttons. But wait, you'll have noticed a problem here.
See, all this still requires a human called a feature engineer to define the few dozen kernels that search for the few dozen features. Whereas in the wild, we come across a few thousand new shapes that change every few seconds.
There ain't enough Red Bull and Doritos in Silicon Valley for the coders to keep up with that. But imagine if they could force millions of other people to identify the squares with the road signs in them for free. Well, that'd be oodles of training data.
So now, let's just ask our computer to create a randomized kernel. Of course, that's going to produce a random output, then another, then another. Why not 100,000 more? We're not burning human hours after all.
What we have then is a function that makes thousands of tiny illogical changes. We call this a political function. Now, of course, that would spit out a random array, but remember, all of our images have already been labeled by lemmings on the internet. We know the answers that we're looking for, and that lets us define a cost function, which is just the difference between our random output and the true one that the slaves provided. The lower the cost function, the better our AI's guess. And remember, functions, well, they can be graphed. It's kind of hard to visualize a function of 100,000 terms, but if you could, you just calculate the slope at some random point, then find the direction that descends from there, and from there, and from there. This is called gradient descent, and it's how our AI would find the minimum of the cost function, which by definition finds the kernels that most accurately label our image.
Just wanna pack up my things and go. Just wanna be free, just wanna zone. Just wanna flow, just wanna hang with the gang, but sometimes chill on my own. Just wanna do me, just wanna doze. Just wanna live and see how it goes.
That is how AI learns to identify things on its own. Oh, and that's why it's called deep learning. It's not that the philosophical consequences are so deep or only deep genius could comprehend it. It's just that the mathematical function is literally thousands of layers deep.
Deep learning is how we might analyze millions of crashes, each with thousands of unique features, and automatically find a logic for predicting the next one. The only uncanny thing is we know that's based on thousands of hidden kernels, which are mathematically justified but incomprehensible to us.
An autopilot might slam on the brakes where a human sees nothing.
What are you seeing? Weird.
And all that leaves is a 100,000-step logic pathway that fleshy feet can't retrace to figure out why.
And don't get me wrong, AI makes far fewer mistakes than humans, but the mistakes it does make are creepily unhuman.
So let's look where AI really shines, in the dark. Now say every pop coming from this exhaust is a photon hitting your eyeball. In bright daylight, that's pretty regular. But at night, because quantum particles are never quite where you'd look for them to be, the variance is more obvious. Bup, 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 bup.
Scale up the ISO and quantum randomness is so amplified you can see it. It's called shot noise.
This is what Elon means when he talks about Tesla seeing at the photon level. It's a bit annoying because everyone sees at the photon level, that's how eyeballs work. But like everything Elon says, there is one single corn of science hidden within the diarrhea of self-promotion.
See, AI can use kernels to average out photon shots. A powerful AI camera can do so in real time, illuminating us to the black bear and the black bushes that our eyeballs would never pick up. We can also simply see wider. This Ace Pro 2 takes 157 degrees more than the competition, more than your pupils, and a machine like a motorcycle could be fitted with 10 such cameras.
Audio is even easier to denoise since it's a one-dimensional signal. So the
algorithm can hear much better than a human too, especially in high turbulence environments.
Granted, this Ace Pro 2 now has a built-in wind guard, this hard shell encasing a foamy over the microphone, so it has a significant advantage over the GoPro on hardware alone. Still, this illustrates the power of AI. And that the power is not voodoo, it's just a bunch of mathematics working in the background of your regular ride. And if AI can make this tiny camera shoot with nearly the quality of our rig 8 times its size, then it could amplify your situational awareness by at least that much. So, don't be surprised when your next motorcycle comes with AI, but don't be conned into thinking you should pay much for it. There are a few genius engineers who deserve their millions for discovering how we can numerically model our own neural functions, but after that, it's just a really long math function that's nearly free to reproduce. And if we're not so impressed that we can make something artificial seem intelligent, we may properly heed that what we've actually done is make our own intelligence seem artificial. To borrow an old coder's joke, that comes at a cost we can't fully derive.
Twinkling in the edge of every frame we've seen, though, is our silver lining. To my filmmaker and I, it's how AI vision is best used to create a camera that breathtakingly amplifies our shooting possibilities while saving us money.
Thank you very much for watching, and thanks to Insta360 for sponsoring us with the ideal learning aid. Their Ace Pro 2 is not any more expensive than the GoPro for all its benefits from AI, and I love the honesty of that value add. What Insta should have charged more for, and didn't, are the now removable lens guards, which every motorcyclist will happily scratch up and replace. The dash cam mode that now loops over whatever card space remains, maximizing coverage according to how much I've already shot. The addition of a time code, which lets us easily sync files from our A-cam or lapel mics. And the dual track audio that takes my voice from a Cardo or Senna and overlays that with the motorcycle's engine tone taken from the camera's onboard microphone, fading the classic motovlog soundscape without having to hook up any extra equipment. All that plus 8K at 30 frames per second being the highest image quality in this segment makes the Ace Pro 2 kind of the ubiquitous choice for pros in this industry. It's just a rare treat that if you're also curious to try an AI-powered camera, you could click the link below and get one at a surprisingly consumer price.
Yeah, so we're just out here on the Fort 9 shoot.
Yeah, we're lighting.
Look at this Jedi.
Yeah, I like that.
Man, the city looks amazing in this camera, like, jokes aside.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It's because of that light, because I'm lighting it.
Yeah, it's all because of you.
Oh, look at that move as well.